Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Tuesday, January 7th, 2020, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate the support and interest in my channel. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Well, we're going to continue looking into the quote-unquote giants or large hominids state by state. And next up in the list here was Indiana. So naturally, I had to go through all the accounts on the Greater Ancestor site there, and just they're phenomenal. And some of them are quite bizarre. So we're definitely going to get to it. But as usual, as I go through these things, I come across, one in particular that, I might single out that's of particular interest. So I came across this one. I don't even want to get into it too much because I want to get to the article. I did a video about this yesterday, and I had to just do it over again because the main point was getting to this article about this site in Indiana with these astronomical alignments that they found. They're just fascinating to me when they find these things. It's just a huge area, actually. So here's where I found it when I was going through the accounts, and naturally large skeletal remains were dug up in these areas, so that's why it's in this Greater Ancestors website here. And it's interesting what they said back then about it. We have in this county two classes of mounds, one a fortification and the other memorial mound. So what they're saying is this seems like a fortification with a memorial mound in the center, which it seems to be, and from what I understand, a mainstream research that was done there in 2006. I'm reading the actual archaeological report on this site, and it's quite lengthy and detailed. And apparently, the mound in the center is an Adena mound, and the walls are attributed to the Hopewell. So, but in reality, in their minds, there is no separation there. The Hopewell and Adena are contemporary and apparently part of the same ceremonial system. Okay, which is interesting to me because all of the accounts that I've gone through so far, including up into historical times where you have these large chieftains, which may be a separate class of royalty among native peoples in the past. It certainly seems that way, similar to the Watusi tribe. And I showed a travel video from 1939 whereas the Watusi people are these 7-foot people, African people. Their tribe, the Tutsi people, who are their subjects and whatnot, are just average-sized people. So it's highly, it strongly points in that direction from the actual official research on this. So the fortification, or Old Fort as it is known in early history of the country, is near the city of Winchester. Is the best specimen of mound builders fortification found in the state. It is not only the largest, but is constructed on more scientific plans than any others of the state. So they give the dimensions. It's an enclosure about 43 acres, so it says it's actually 31 acres there, as you can see by the drawing, but I guess maybe they're including the outside. I don't know, but it must be a typo there, or they didn't know. Almost equal size, being 1,350 feet east and west, and about 1,200 feet north and south. So it's an approximation. I guess they didn't know, but it's 31 acres. It's absolutely huge. And this little element here just piqued my interest because I recognized this from another site that I did a video on already, and that is the Old Stone Fort in Tennessee. Now, it's not a rectangle, it's not straight lines or anything, but you can see the same sort of construction element, building element, which I believe is a pinch point element to this, okay, for security purposes, whether it's being used for fortifications or whatever it may be. In my opinion, I think a lot of these areas were just municipal areas, and all constructions that these peoples did during these times had some bearing on astronomical alignments because it was a type of sacred topography involved with this sort of thing, okay? And also sacred construction, okay, sacred engineering, okay, that's what I believe anyway. I mean, if you have sacred topography, you're going to get out of the sacred topography, and there's all these scholarly articles on it, and it applies to all this stuff in the Middle East, but it applies anywhere, okay? So there are some alignments with this as well, but again, it's these rock-covered stone, earthen-covered stone walls. They're high bluffs here. It's high security area. Okay, and if the Hopewell and the Adena, as I've gone over, and this is mainstream, it's not a theory of mine or anything like that, but this is mainstream, saying that, these artifacts recovered from the Hopewell and Adena just came from all over the United States. So apparently they had agents going out throughout the country and bringing back these goods, and what better place to do it in than a secure zone. Okay, because all the ancient cultures of the past, I don't know who the Adena's enemies were, and the Hopewells, apparently, if they're contemporaries, it'd be collectively who their enemy was or whatever. Maybe there were no enemies, okay, and everything was internal. Like in feudal China, for example, when you had all of these highway bandits and, thieves and roadway thieves. And, this has been going on forever in the United States, up into the mafia. You have these independent operators going on in these places. So a lot of things that may have been conceived as war were also duels, dueling with other people and whatnot. Maybe some of these ceremonial mound buriers had to do with duels. Maybe these people fought duels with other people, contests of strength, of skill, with weapons, etc., etc. It had nothing to do with war whatsoever. Okay, you have to consider these things. These are all part of these people's cultures. Perhaps, it was, in many of the native cultures, and certainly in our culture. So, in any case, let's get through this. I want to get through it fast because I want to get to the article. I want you to find out about the astronomical alignments that are associated. And I want you to see some other types of mounds that are similar, okay? Just fascinating things. We'll have to go over them in the future. But look at some of these things, okay? These are all found in North America and recorded back in the time of Squire and Davis, okay? And here it is, the one in Randolph County, right? Okay, and these are just considered rectangular earthworks. Okay, temple mound build areas, and also with the same sort of constructions. Okay, another odd one here at Cedar Bank, Ohio. Look at this stuff. This is very cool. Works in Washington County, Mississippi. Pyramid temple, temple mound builders. Hopeton, Ohio. These weird circular ones that look like almost, some annular mounds or, bell and barrows and whatnot. And, it looks like here's Hopeton, okay, like the Newark, all similar to these moon observatories, phases of the moon. And here's actual forts. Look how interesting this is. Okay, here's one, fortified hill in Alton, Ohio. Here's another one, fortified hill. This is interesting earthworks there. Look at this one here. Very interesting stuff. Okay, more. Fortified headland. Enclosures, Northern Ohio. Look at this one. Square enclosure with one way in up against a, high bluff along a river. Security area. Ceremonial religious. Look at these. How interesting is that? Look at this stuff. Amazing. Okay. So just to show you some similar earthworks that are found elsewhere, they're just fascinating, okay? And I'm sure they have their own astronomical alignments, et cetera, but let's get to this article here. Unfortunately, the mainstream research, which is actually, this is the actual archaeological report from Ball University. And let me just read this one paragraph to you because it's so interesting what they say. There's a very lengthy report. I've been reading through it. There's a lot of minutiae, a lot of details. It's fascinating, but it's just 500 pages or whatever the heck it is. It's just ridiculously long and a lot to think about. Throughout the Ohio Valley, there is consensus that the Adena complex is a chronological and cultural precursor of the Hopewell complex. Data from mound enclosure sites in east central Indiana, however, requires a different perspective. The radiocarbon database from the region shows that the mounds and enclosures are contemporary, regardless of whether Adena or Hopewell complex artifacts are present. In addition, contextual analysis of the site shows that the Adena and Hopewell complex artifacts occur together in some features, although they are segregated in different types of sites. These chronological contextual relationships indicate that the two complexes are contemporary and that they represent different parts of the same ceremonial system. Currently, we are testing this hypothesis against data from East Central Indiana. I'm interested in that because this seems to infer, okay, that the Adena and Hopewell were contemporary, okay, and that the Adena might be the royalty of these people, okay, rather large hominids, 8 and 9 and 10 feet tall and 7 feet tall, and the Hopewell, their subjects, were maybe of just average size. Okay, but they are contemporary, okay? A similar relationship to that of the Watusi culture and the Tutsi culture over there in Africa as of 1939. I don't know what's going on there now, but these people were royalty, were 7 feet tall there. So, and we hear all these accounts that suggest this, including historical accounts from, historical figures, okay? So these things have to be considered, but these areas also have to be looked at as municipal areas because it's like a fort or a castle, right? So inside the castle walls, all sorts of things are done. Where people live on the outside, the people of note might live on the inside, maybe, or besides the fact that it's just a municipal area used for different types of things, not just purely religious ceremonies. That's what they relegate these people to. That's all they were doing there. But I find it hard to believe if you have this vast trading network, you're going to need a secure place. You're going to have items and things coming in on a daily basis. You don't know how long these parties are going to take to go halfway across the United States and down to South America and up to Alaska or whatever it is, and then come back again on specific dates. These peers were probably busy areas all the time, and they were bringing back all sorts of goods as indicated by the artifacts uncovered and acknowledged by mainstream archaeologists. It's not a theory or hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. This is mainstream, okay? So they know all these things come from various areas of the country. So obviously they have these vast networks of roadways, etc., that are actually main interstate highways today. Okay, north and south and east and west. And every town in the Northeast, many towns in the Northeast may have Indian Trail Way or whatever it is, and it's an actual Indian trail from way back when. Now it's a roadway with a stone wall going along it, up there by Jimmy in Vermont, right adjacent to where he lives. Okay, with his stone walls over there with all kinds of serpents in them and everything down this serpentine road that's called Indian Trail Road. So, look, and what they say in mainstream here, by this childish thing that they put out for education purposes, that the Indian, the native peoples are one and the same as these people. But is for real? I mean, is that for real? Or take a look at this. Okay, so here's the Native Americans at average size as all of us, right? And here is the Adena. So this is a composite developed by Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer. They write about these things, okay? And it just goes to show you, are we talking about the same people now? Are these Native Americans? Well, they certainly are Native Americans. We don't know where they come from, just like all the large hominids all around the world. But they seem to appear at the same time as, let's say, the Beaker people in Europe, etc., etc. So large hominids around the world, where they all come from, and they just happen to be here in North America too. Who's to say they came from anywhere else? Maybe all large hominids in the world came from here. Okay, shown with horns, etc., the vaulted craniums, and here's an average person. Are we talking about the same people, Native Americans? I don't think so. Okay, so this is what's buried and this is what's not said. So let me try to get to this article because I want to get through it for you. It's very interesting, fascinating, as a matter of fact. And this is from Newswire here, and the research was done in 2006. They're reporting about it here in 2016. Ancient earthwork at Winchester, Indiana shows stellar alignments to Cygnus and Orion from AP Magazine. The ancient Hopewell earthworks at Indiana's Fudge site, which I hate that name, show all, and that's their name for it. That's their archaeologist's name for it, Fudge site. What dopes. Show all the key stellar and solar alignments associated with the Path of Souls death rituals. Winchester, Indiana, August 2nd, 2016. Hopewell earthworks and mounds are some of the most intriguing and mysterious geometric formations created in the ancient world. Quote-unquote Hopewell refers to a Native American mound-building era that developed from the early Adena culture, with both names derived from excavating mound sites on historic plantations. So it's not the earlier culture. I just showed you the archaeological report. They don't believe that. They believe they're contemporary, so it's not the relationship. They're not reporting on it right. Adena and Hopewell spanned the approximate time frame of 1500 BC to AD 900 and were gradually replaced by another mound culture called Mississippian. Archaeological research the past few years has shown that many ancient Native American mound earthwork sites were constructed in a way to facilitate a death ritual that would lead deceased souls to the stars. This Path of Souls ritual took place on the winter solstice and involved Orion's Nebula and the Cygnus constellation. The key alignments for the death ritual on the winter solstice were the sunset, the setting point of Cygnus, specifically the star Deneb, and the rising setting points of Orion's Nebula. On the night of the winter solstice, a series of star alignments were viewed. These alignments were typically made from the top of a prominent mound directly across another important mound or an important earthwork point, such as an opening or corner of the formation. On the distant horizon and directly above the aligned mound, observers would see the setting and rising of the stars involved. One intriguing Hopewell earthwork that has been previously shown of alignments to the sun and solstices in Randolph County near Winchester, Indiana, archaeologists refer to as the Fudge Site, and is the largest earthen structure recorded in Indiana. The Fudge Site is a square-shaped earthwork enclosing over 31 acres. The square has sides of 1082 by 1263 feet. The outer walls of the square were from 7 to 10 feet in height and 25 feet in width. There were two openings or gateways through the square's walls, locating on the eastern and western side. The western gateway was itself a small square enclosure with an opening. 3 radiocarbon samples were obtained in 2006, dating the earthwork to 110 BC to AD 220. Okay, so that small rectangular thing that they're talking about is like what they're talking about at the old stone fort, and their site here is the Squire and Davis here. It's a pinch point. It's to force people into a tiny opening to get in and out. So it controls the flow of people in and out, okay, and creates them to wait their turn, okay. And this may be for viewing for security purposes, okay, and also to get an enemy or a thief, more likely in a unified society that has no external enemies. Who knows who the Adena's enemies were? Okay, so in any case, back to this. All right, the outer walls of the square were from 7 to 10 feet in height and 25 feet in width. There were two openings. Okay, I read this already. to 180-foot diameter oblong mound was situated in the center of the square. It was originally somewhere between 8 and 15 feet in height. A 1929 excavation found 3 burials and 2 caches of artifacts in the mound. A 1992 study showed that the sunrises and sunset at the summer and winter solstices were incorporated into the square earthwork. These earlier discovered alignments were the impetus for calculating if the stellar alignments involved in the Path of Souls ritual were also incorporated into the site's construction. So a far deeper understanding besides the sun. To determine the horizon sightlines from the central mound and key points of the square, the precise GPS location of the surrounding horizon altitudes were determined on Google Earth, and from location information supplied in prior archaeological reports, Starry Night Pro was used to generate the movements and azimuth positions of the stars on December 21, AD 55. That particular year, AD 55, was utilized for stellar calculation as it was the center point of the radiocarbon ages obtained from the site. The cross-azimuth distance calculator was used to determine the exact horizon altitude and azimuths of the stars investigated. Dr. Greg Little, author of the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Native American Indian Mounds and Earthworks, performed the calculations. Results showed that Cygnus, specifically the star Deneb, set on the northwest horizon at 12:01 a.m. at 323 degrees. Viewed from atop the central mound, Cygnus would have set directly over the northwestern point of the square. At 6:22 p.m., shortly after sunset, Orion would have been seen slightly elevated in the sky at 103 degrees. As viewed from atop the central mound, Orion would have been seen directly above the gateway opening on the eastern side of the square. Orion would have then proceeded to move over the site and toward the west. The slightly southwestern setting of Horizon on the horizon, specifically Orion's Nebula, took place at 5:21 a.m., not long before dawn, on an azimuth of 262 degrees. From the northeast point of the square, the setting of Orion was seen directly over the odd-shaped gateway on the western side of the square. The Fudge site was clearly a mortuary site, perhaps with Adena-era elements, central mound, incorporated in a later Hopewell earthwork. The site was clearly constructed with the star alignments required in the Path of Souls ritual. Okay, so it says for the full article from AP, click there. I don't want to go there because I can't do it. It's going to take up too much time. But as it says in this, this is the, Ball University archaeological report. They're contemporary. So it seems to me that this tradition is carried on into the Native Americans as well, with these large chieftains or large people being the royalty of the society, and Hopewell just being people of average stature. And here's where they're making their mistakes. They don't understand the relationship. They're not making that connection because they don't. All these other accounts are not official accounts. Okay, so they're not admissible for study or whatever it is because they weren't done professionally. But the people who made the computer graphic pictures of the Adena here, Jason Jarrell and Sarah Farmer,